Okay, you don't have any echo, by the way, do you?
I don't have any echo. Do you have echo?
No echo.
Okay. I feel good.
Great.
Are you happy?
Man, I'm happy. You know what? I try to be happy as I can be every single minute of every single day.
Well, you do a pretty good job of that.
Well, I mean, you say that. I mean, you don't know because you can't see any, but listen what I said.
I know.
Here's the operative word.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Try.
Well,
It's an effort. It's like, right? It's effort.
But we don't want it to be a false effort.
No. It's not. And you're right. One has to understand that the try part is a lot of effort a lot of times, I tell.
That's right. I mean,
right?
Having a positive mindset is far more difficult than the gurus like to let us know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you know what? That is almost it's like the hill. You know, it's like the hill. I mean, you're on the hill and you're like, fuck, man, the top of the hill, I still can't see it, right?
You got to push the rock up the hill.
You've got to, and still keeping going is that part which is the trying, which is difficult. So just to say one is happy, you know, you're doing your best given the circumstances that the rock and the force of the rock wants to go back down the hill.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite references, Sisyphus.
Okay, let's give it.
Sisyphus.
All right.
He's the guy. Sisyphus is the guy pushing the rock up the hill.
By golly, listen, I don't know the reference of Sisyphus. I was just
You don't?
I was just Mike Anderson.
It's one of my favorite concepts of all time. You push the rock up the hill. For why? I'm not sure. Does the rock want to come back down the hill? Yes, it does.
Okay.
Is it all pointless? Yeah.
Good
Sisyphus.
Lord. Okay, things like this make me both encouraged, and I would say if I was one to be worried that I had known that and learned it 4 different times and I just forgot it. That's one thing. Maybe.
You've learned it.
Or that I just feel these things, which I do, which they make sense. Like Mr. Sisyphus. Mr. Sisyphus, that you came up with that, you know, I'm not going to be like, hey, man, Mike came up. I didn't come up with it. I don't know if I've come up with anything ever. There's just these little things that I feel yeah, that's right. Going up the hill is hard.
Yeah.
Also, going out to the mailbox, constantly cleaning my cat's litter box is hard. But I'm going to go back to it, just like Sisyphus does to the hill and the rock.
Yeah. Do you think I should bring Kent in? Oh my God, you have a big glass of water. Do you have Topo Chico?
Man.
Be honest.
No, I don't have any Topo
Oh
Chico.
my fucking God.
I don't. You know why?
Yeah. Tell me.
There's been a run on Topo Chico in this house.
There's a run on Topo Chico like at every market I go to.
Yeah. I think that we're probably to blame for that.
Yeah. Wow.
Every person that I see, hypothetically, they say to me with their eyes, "Hey, aren't you the Topo Chico, one of the Topo Chico guys?" And I hypothetically back at them, look at them, and I say, "Yes," with my eyes.
All right.
They walk into the store, and just like the story of Sisyphus magically came into my head,
Yeah.
They walk up and they go, I was here for a Coke. I'm getting Topo Chico. I don't know why.
Well, okay, fair enough. Kent Jarman is sitting like just off camera over there twiddling his thumbs.
Yeah?
And he can't hear. You know, it's the funny thing because obviously I've got the cans on. He can't hear it.
Let's get him. Let's get him in here.
Come on, Kent.
Welcome to Drop the Check. Today's special guest is a winemaker originally from Louisiana. So he knows words like Couchon and étouffée. But don't think a boy from the Low Country doesn't know a thing or two about wine or Bourbon. Let's give a warm welcome to Kent Jarman. I say hey to Kent. He can't hear me. He just sees me.
Oh, man.
Now, see?
Now.
The rich sound of baritone.
That's nice.
Isn't that
Wow.
nice?
Yeah.
It's good. I mean, it's kind of, I'm a little bit hungover from watching that game last night, and I'm sitting in the corner in this, delicious cold bubblies over here.
The ice cold Topo Chico.
And you just
feel it in your hand.
Yeah, and you're just keeping me on ice over there, and it's just
I
bubbling.
was keeping you on ice.
Oh, man.
Good gracious. Did you see how he just came in? He came in rolling in hot, going for the Topo Chico right out of it. He said he's hungover. He hungover from the game? Just the game or the excitement of the game itself, Kent, got you?
Well, I think the excitement of the bourbon I was drinking.
Yeah, right. Well, that and the excitement of the game can really, yeah.
Two great segues.
Okay.
One is I'm a little concerned that, on this show, we are starting to get a little bit South-Centric. A lot of our guests currently, in the past and in the future, tend to be a little Southern.
Okay. And what is the problem with that? Where's the...
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to be equal to all parties intended. But secondarily, there was a second to that, which was something about SEC football. I don't know.
Oh, I mean, I don't know, but my highlight of the game was watching Michael Jordan and Derek Jeter so disdained towards Stephen A. Smith. He was in their suite. You could just tell.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, it was great.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Did you see that, Mike?
It's like this awkward hug, and Stephen A's just and you could tell they were so annoyed. Like, how did he get in here?
It's a weird scene. That scene when they show the camera shot up there in that booth where you have Stephen A. and you have Jordan and Derek Jeter, right? You have all these different people that even in the brief shot, because he's in between the football game, they're just going to show the camera shot up there, that I was trying to make out, oh my God, that's over there is so-and-so, that it is this kind of weird, I had that vision of if you're in there, this is kind of like the Illuminati booth, right? Of all the people
minus
that
Stephen
are
A. Smith.
Right, yeah. There isn't, again, this is maybe like the Sisyphus thing that Robbie was talking about earlier.
Do you know Sisyphus, Kent?
I'm kind of familiar with that story, but I wasn't familiar with Sassafras.
You couldn't name Sisyphus.
Yeah, okay, let's see. Okay, to let me off the hook. Kent, what is the story of Sisyphus?
Well, I was sitting in the corner, so...
you already heard that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But I would not have known it before that, so you're off the hook.
Thank you. I don't even know now. In terms of the Illuminati, isn't there some kind of there is some level of treachery or bullshit, devil, evil? Hello, Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
There you go.
I cannot stand that guy, but
Yeah, I don't believe in the Illuminati.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's like the story of Sisyphus. I just happen to know that, the up the hill and rock thing.
But secondary, beyond the Topo Chico intro, there is that perfect segue there, because I believe there is some sorts of Illuminati in our industry. Mm-hmm. Our industry being food and beverage, in my particular corner of the world, wine, beverage.
Yeah.
More so. And I believe that Kent is part of the Illuminati.
Okay, wow. Now that is a great segue to expound upon that. So,
well, do you know the whole bourbon game? It's a little secretive and uncomfortable.
Golly, you're going to go right. We don't even, I know nothing about Kent other than he steps in, he goes for the Topo Chico.
Yeah.
He must somehow be involved. He must be a Southerner.
Do you know he's from Louisiana?
I don't know. I don't know. Listen,
Kent,
I know a guy likes.
Kent, where are you from?
Yeah, Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Okay. So, Baton Rouge.
That's the end of his story.
Here we go. Hey, great. Ladies and gentlemen.
I found out this. See, and also, I guess Atlanta has its own Illuminati. But again, I think Louisiana, they're a little bit secretive down there.
Mm-hmm.
So, do I get to tell my Topo Chico story?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know you guys really do a lot of good work with Topo Chico.
We do.
Mm-hmm. So, I just wanted to, comment on familiarity with it, but yeah, like the first time, I think Robbie mentioned it before. I think I listened to one of y'all's podcasts, and
He thinks
just
he did.
that, just that, it seemed kind of like a hype thing for the beverage industry or whatever. But I, myself opened a Topo Chico and then set it. I really liked it. And I set it down overnight and like came back to it in the morning. And it still was, fizzing,
Still bubbles.
which was
Okay.
incredible. So I, that sort of gave me the verification that it wasn't actually really good.
What you're
drink.
saying is our work is doing
They're
good.
doing great work.
You
But,
would not have had the Topo Chico without my recommendation.
well, sure. Yeah. But way back when. Yeah. But the other thing is like there was, like you said, there was a run on it, or there are runs.
It's
on it.
always,
And
it's not supplied.
It's always limited, right? So
That's right.
I was looking for it for weeks. Excuse me. And then I went down to Austin. I do a little bit of wine work down there.
Yeah.
And I'm driving around, and I'm driving, getting gas, and I'm grabbing barbecue. And around that same time frame, they have the ice chests in the gas stations full of Topo Chico, of Topo Chico. So I immediately assumed there was a war going on, and an embargo act from Texas where they were holding all the Topo Chico hostage from California, I think.
Shit, you reach heaven or something.
Well, and maybe this is it's part of the problem that we need more representatives like myself to make sure that California is stocked.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I go to Safeway, our grocery store,
Yeah.
and I know Topo Chico is very high level, and it should maybe only be in the finest establishments. But when I go to the Safeway, I want to have my Topo Chico, and I constantly find it off the shelf. There's a spot for it, but it's off the shelf.
And now, like, even some grocery stores, it's like there's a 4-bottle allocation.
Yeah. It's like Pliny.
Exactly.
Like Pliny.
That's what it is.
It's.
They're
I
gonna
don't
leak it.
think it should be that way. I think Topo is for the people.
Is there one spring for Topo and that's it?
You know
what's the
what?
story?
I'm trying to get the principal water maker. I don't know. We call ourselves winemakers. What is the bottler, the head guy for Topo Chico called? What would you say his name? Do you think he went to a food and beverage school?
No. I probably imagine he's like also the CEO of like a telecom company or something and owns, you know what I mean?
Not
like,
the guy who actually puts it in the bottle.
The chief water maker?
The chief, what is that guy called? Production manager?
I guess so. I think it'd be a production manager.
I mean, I've already talked many times about the pH balance, and there's something.
What about like the actual dissolved CO2 in there? There's got to be something to
completely
it.
agree
I
with
mean,
you.
it's amazing. It's
See, Mike, this is what you have when you have a winemaker on here. This is what we talk about.
Well, I mean, now I'm even finding out he's a winemaker. So we know he's from Baton Rouge. He loves Topo Chico. He's a winemaker.
Yeah.
So, Robbie, should we find out a little bit more? How do we start with our story of Kent? I just know him as Kent, Topo Chico, Louisiana guy.
That's right.
Identify yourself.
Yeah, Kent Jarman, Topo Chico guy, also resident Cajun winemaker.
Yeah,
one of a few. There's not many out here for sure. I think there's like a couple of producers maybe in Paso Robles and Sonoma, but
is there
more
another
producers? I'm actually a vintner, So.
Is there another person in Napa Valley from Baton Rouge, not just Louisiana, from Baton Rouge? Because from Georgia, I've got a ton of us.
Yeah.
Because, we're smarter and
yeah. There's. This is pretty typical rhetoric coming from the Georgia guy.
Yeah.
But there was another guy actually who we both worked at Duckhorn at the same time.
Really?
Or maybe we shared 1 year, and he was from Baton Rouge. And it was funny though. He went to LSU, and then he went to Davis, and then he went to Australia for winemaking.
Yeah.
And he didn't get hired at first by one of the guys at Duckhorn because I was kind of joking, but he couldn't stand his Louisiana turned Australian accent.
Oh God!
And it was like the weirdest thing ever.
And it's not totally dissimilar. The weirdness of the Australian Kiwi / Cajun accent. They're all kind of like
Completely. You're right. Hang on, you said something, and this is always good for me, Kent, because I'm the resident person on here that doesn't know anything, or let's say limited knowledge that I have on wine. You just said something that other people like me are going to be like, what did he mean by that? You said, yeah, he's a producer.
oh.
I'm a vintner.
Right. I was
Okay.
sort of just referencing the fact that you have, you'll have producers like, hey, I own a winery, and I own the actual winery, the wine brand.
Yes.
And you hire the people to do your things, whether that's buying fruit or you own your vineyard and you hire the people in there.
Right.
My background is actual winemaking and production, is what I meant.
I got you.
A vintner is actually technically a producer as well, but I'm more like a winemaker, where you can have a vineyard manager and a winemaker, and then you have an owner / producer.
Why don't we get into terminology? See,
Here we go. Here we go.
Mike,
Sassafras.
Yeah. Southern boys, winemaker, Southern boys. This is a good one right here.
Yeah, and also for the record, Kent is quite younger than me.
Okay.
And so I'm still trying to teach him the industry, and
yes.
he's a little rough around the edges. So
Sage.
We all
Sage.
need mentors, and
Truth.
yeah.
So let's start with the fundamental. So you have a vineyard worker who obviously works in the vineyard and is doing pruning and all sorts of vine care. And then you have a cellar worker, who is in the cellar doing all the fundamental hands-on doing what you need to do, right?
Yes.
And then you might have a vineyard manager who is overseeing the operations.
Right.
And then you might have a viticulturalist who is the guy who he went to the fancy school and he knows all the sprays to use, and he knows the soil types or whatever, and he's managing just the vines. Okay. And then you have a winemaker, probably one of the most douchiest positions. Those guys think they know a lot, and they're like, I'm making the wine. When actually a lot of these guys are not actually even getting their hands dirty and shoveling out tanks and doing manipulative work like the cellar master would.
This is true.
Okay. And then you have a producer.
Yes.
Maybe they're a viticulturalist. Maybe they're a winemaker.
Maybe they're just a business person.
Maybe they're just a business person. Now, especially in California, especially Americans, we love to adopt French words. And so a vigneron is a guy who owns a vineyard and makes wine. And he's probably wearing like a smoking jacket and sitting in a room somewhere and just telling other people what to do.
Maybe an ascot.
Maybe an ascot.
Said vigneron, though, does said vigneron know the process of making wine?
Sure. I mean, they know the process. It's, you're going to represent your product better the more you know. But, I mean, that being said, I think so much of it, we're sort of playing in the world of all these vignerons who, like they say, one of the famous kind of quotes for the wine industry is it takes a very large fortune from another industry to make a small fortune in the wine industry.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what we mean. Like, those are primarily the vignerons.
Like
that's who we work
grandfather.
for. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and in my limited capacity to understand this, and in a comparison of maybe would be like a restaurant, right? There is that chef.
And
you
a
have
chef.
all those people that are down there that like that dude on the line way down there that's just responsible for whatever this fish. That Mushu, if you really gave him, someone plucked him out of here, he knows every aspect about this restaurant, right?
100%,
and you could, the money guy could pull him out of here and go, guess what? You're and these names of people positions that you had, you're my winemaker now.
Yeah.
100%. Sure. Yeah. That's how we kind of like move our way up. I mean, I did get the UC Davis education. I mean, it's a really good scientific background and basis for viticulture and enology. I had a lot of, I learned a lot there, but obviously you learn way more being hands-on, and we all start kind of as either a vineyard guy or a cellar guy, and you kind of work your way up that way. And so
technically, you used to work for me.
I did, and I hated every minute of it. I hated every minute of it. Just the oppression, and the
yes. Yes.
And that's why I am where I am today. Because I left.
It is pretty comical. That was a very long time ago, but
but that was fun.
But okay, so that's a decent segue. But backing up, okay, so jokes aside, Kent, you're from Baton Rouge / New Orleans,
right?
And you came out here. I'm gonna say 2001.
UC Davis was 99.
99.
Yeah,
okay.
so 99, 2000. I did. I basically did prerequisite science courses to get into UC Davis, to get into that viticulture and enology program. My grandfather was a wine distributor in Louisiana, so that was, that's the story. Basically, he had the entire family like oriented towards food and wine. So I always thought that was just a normal thing. And then, once you kind of get out into college and all that stuff, we're all broke, and that's not such a normal thing.
Yeah, no, but it is different. I mean, I like to play up the, again, like too many Southern people on here, but my Southern experience, and I think I grew up around food. I will, as much as I hate to do it, give the Louisiana people so much credit, because it is very much, I mean, everybody I know from Louisiana, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, I mean, it's like food and music. That's who you guys are, right? I mean, don't you identify that, and all your friends? I mean, wouldn't you identify yourselves as food and music?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. That's sort of what defines all of us down there, because we don't have a lot of other things to do.
Hunting gators.
Yeah.
But seriously, so I mean, you don't think it's that much of a stretch to be going into food and beverage and wine?
No, not at all. I mean, it's funny because the amount of, and just kind of not to diverse or go too far from the subject, but like the music stuff. I mean, everybody down there plays music.
Everybody.
I grew up. Yeah, I was like the worst musician.
And you're 10 times better than me.
Yeah, but like in comparison down there, so it's kind of funny. But food and beverage, it's a natural progression. Like especially going to New Orleans and that culture there,
which again surprises me that now that I'm thinking of it, that there aren't more Baton Rouge, Louisiana, New Orleans people here around us. I mean, I can't think of. I'm not pulling anyone's name out of my hat. It's part of our group, which is a very prestigious group.
Yeah, right. Well, the amount of viticulture and actual enological processing going on in Louisiana is pretty limited, right? So, one of those things, technically, you really can't grow the grapevines. You can't grow grapevines in Louisiana because it's subtropics. So, it just doesn't.
Hold on, you can.
I mean, you can with modifications and applications, but it's sure.
Well, you're battling mildew. You're battling, the weather. It's the soil. I mean, the low country is not ideal for grapevines. Too fertile.
Nope.
Grow your corn. Grow your rice, sugar cane, rice,
soybeans,
corn, soybeans, but too much water down there, and too humid.
Yeah, well, that is interesting for what you said, and this is a funny thing, Kent, that my daughter and I were talking the other day. My daughter goes to school in Savannah, which Savannah, Georgia has culturally, I guess, just, history and on the water and the type of people that are there for the party town, which is, music and booze and whatever. that she has never been to New Orleans or to Louisiana. And so we were just simply talking about New Orleans, and she's pretty well studied. And she even came to, I want to go there, if only because of that culture and food, right?
And the likeness of Savannah.
Yeah.
And that likeness of Savannah.
Yeah, and,
So-
yeah, Charles. I actually haven't been to Savannah, but I've been to Charleston. Charleston's like a little miniature
Another one.
New Orleans.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
It's amazing.
Well, Charleston, Savannah, and New Orleans to me are the three sisters.
Right.
And they are very different from one another. And,
Yeah, so-
yeah.
It's interesting that where you go with that like obviously the food aspect and music, as you said, is already kind of woven into that culture. Do you find like more people from Louisiana? Because, for a long time, you just simply, you couldn't grow. You're not growing grapes, so wine's not part of your deal unless wine's coming from some other place. Are more folks that you find, because of your culture, moving out of Louisiana into wine?
Let's see. I think so a little bit. It's a slow trickle though. It's people kind of, there's New Orleans is really based around a tourism industry. There's been, Louisiana's always been like a big oil and petroleum industry. So people just kind of gravitate towards that. It's medical or legal. So when they get into food and beverage, it's more following that track of like maybe a somm, type
Or like
education.
your granddad distributor. And,
Like distribution or restaurant management, things like that, food and beverage management, not so much in the production fact. But I think that, it's starting to creep up a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a fascinating conversation because it's the whole genesis of like any culture that we talk about, and talking about Charleston, Savannah, New Orleans, port cities, historical port cities. Everything coming into those areas. When we talk about the food that comes from all these places, low country cuisine.
Yeah.
You're getting into this amazing food, but all that food is sourced, low country food is sourced from right there, right? Why is there, rice is the sustainable starch in these areas? Why? You can grow amazing rice in Charleston, in Savannah, in New Orleans.
Yes.
Don't forget the grits.
Yeah, amen, brother. Thank you.
Hominy.
Yeah.
But then, again, expanding upon that, what is the pork product? You have pigs and wild boar. It goes on and on from there. Corn is a major staple because it grows well there. When you have these other auxiliary products, like wine,
Yes.
you're not going to have a winemaker there. You're going to have the business person who is importing
Bringing
and
it.
bringing it in.
Yep.
Yes.
And why bring it in? Because it's not a part of that whole production area. Fair enough, but it goes well with the cuisine. So you've got, and especially in New Orleans, you have all the French influence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's very natural in my brain. I don't know that's natural to everyone else's, but
Well, I think to your point, and that's what we were speaking of, is it's like you don't really see much of the production influence, people getting into that field down there. So
Right.
in terms of production, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
However, can we just jump all over the place here?
Sure, let's
Do
do
we
it.
have to have
Well,
a
we
format?
have to. So
Okay.
we can do whatever we want to do.
Okay, so I in my career am pretty narrow, and I've really just focused myself on producing wine, and I like to cook. I'm okay. I like to do other things, but Kent is not only a very good cook, but he's expanded his winemaking, alcohol production much more than I have, and you've expanded into bourbon production.
Right.
Sorry, whiskey production, let me say.
Right.
Right? And that ties back into, I mean, wouldn't you say in New Orleans, and certainly in Georgia, I mean, whiskey consumption, appreciation is much greater than it is out here.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I guess kind of going back to what we do, being winemaking in general, we're kind of like palate nerds, and it's kind of annoying. I know it can be annoying to people, so it's like when I go home, it's the coffee's not good enough, or the sparkling water is not good enough.
Topo Chico.
Yeah.
And anyways, that just takes you through every other sort of beverage out there, right? And so I started really becoming passionate about whiskey and bourbon, and so
Hold on. You said started to.
right.
Growing up, I mean, and whatever, being a kid, of course, we whatever think alcohol is cool or whatever. But I mean, you had an appreciation for bourbon and whiskey for a long time.
For a long time.
Would you even say before wine?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I absolutely was. I abhorred bourbon.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because
Too strong.
yeah, well, it was like that first year in school when somebody just dumps 8-star down your throat and you just puke your guts out in the morning.
Completely,
It's like, so
You're not appreciating.
right. And like after, I really was getting into Scotch, more at that point. So like really good single malts, and I kind of always leaned towards the Highlands, like sort of that toasty element. I wasn't a big fan of the peat, but I just remember after being in wine and stuff like that, it's like I could smell. If somebody ordered me a bourbon and Coke, like a Jack and Coke,
Yeah.
I mean, I could smell the Jack Daniels from like 50 feet away.
Sure.
And it just made me like, but I do remember, and I don't remember who it was, and it was shocking to me, but when I was getting into scotches, this gentleman said, once you taste like the small batch and single barrel bourbons, so you'll never go back. And I said he was crazy. There's no way. Yeah. And then I was at like Rick House in San Francisco or something. And like I started drinking some really good, small batch bourbon. And it's like I had an epiphany. And all of a sudden I could drink bourbon again. And then now I really don't go back, and I don't really drink a lot of Scotch. So I really stick to really good whiskey. Bourbon.
Two interesting points to me is one, I didn't really ever even go through that path. I did, through tasting and even as an older person and professionally went through the whole gamut. Scotch to me is still like people can hand me the best Scotch in the world, and I still have a difficult time appreciating it.
Yeah.
However, I also had the Jack Daniels and Jim Beam experience. Nothing wrong with those. Again, we don't disparage on the show at all.
Right.
I think there's a great value to what Jim Beam and Jack Daniels provide, but it's definitely a different product than now. And I would probably even say in the past, 15 years. I mean, this doesn't go back to when I'm 25 or 20 or 30. I mean, I have a new appreciation for what proper whiskey / bourbon is, and it's a huge difference. And what you are producing is different. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Oh,
I mean,
for sure.
It's a whole different game.
Yeah, it's wild. I've learned so much about it, and just the differences in how it's produced, and people's methods of trying to get around actual natural age, things like that. And I don't know.
Because older bourbon aged is much more complex. Man, I'm trying to avoid getting overly complex here with production.
No, I want to hear it though, too. I'm having tons of thoughts of what you guys said, even just from your early experiences with the type of beer and or liquor that we said your early experience. Yeah. Actually, both of you guys had appreciation for wine, but let's just say what you said, Kent. The same that I had in college. We're in Southern colleges. It would be some type of Jim Beam poured into a Ziploc bag that you would hide in your sock.
100%.
That you would just pour into Coke. But the same is true for. I love craft beers and IPAs right now. I wouldn't have even. I mean, I would have never known what an IPA was X number of years ago when I was there. It was adjunct beers that I drink. Like your shittiest of cheap beers in a keg. That I actually had an aversion to after drinking, thousands of gallons of them.
Right.
That I was like, oh shit, I'm allergic to beer just because of the bullshit that I was drinking. Same with my smell of Jim Beam, that you finally crest the arc and you get back to, well, you're not really drinking those that are actual, you're drinking bullshit, right?
I
so
I think so.
as a thought
That's where
too,
you are.
because I like to defend every producer for their good work. So the problem with, let's just say, Jim Beam is the ubiquity, because it's misused, and I don't even want to say that. If people appreciate it, that's great. But part of that aversion that you have is because of the ubiquity of it, and like us misusing it and just dumping it into Diet Coke and having too much of it. And we really didn't learn an appreciation for it. I bet you it's kind of like with a lot of wines. If I had it blind in front of me in a proper glass without identity, I bet I would have a much greater appreciation for it than otherwise.
I mean, I have an interesting take on this whole subject matter if you want to get into it.
Please.
It's kind of the story of how we even got into the bourbon that we're making. And it kind of has to do with this, right? Like what's good? What is good bourbon?
Yeah.
Well, I'll sort of keep the names out of it, just for the sake of what we're doing. But we, me and my business partner were looking for whiskey, right? You can't just make 10 years of whiskey out of the blue.
It happened 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, right. So this happened a long time ago, but we were looking to get in. We wanted to, figure out what and we went to a really very well reputed producer.
Reputed or reputed?
Yeah.
Well, Louisiana. I don't know. Is it Louisiana, California, Georgia?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I sort of mix them all together there. And I really had this massive appreciation for their highest level bourbons. We're talking like, these single series releases. They're extremely expensive on the aftermarket. And
but wait, hold on. To clarify, do you mean just when they were put in front of you, that was what you were attracted to, or prior to tasting, you were like, this is what I want?
Prior to having this meeting, I already knew all of their products.
Okay,
gotcha. And they are very well reputed or reputed.
Yes.
All over. I mean, these are very like not just me. This stuff is very highly sought after, right? And we were fortunate to get this meeting and audience, and he, goes on to explain how, well, look, I can make you a barrel right now, and then sell it to you in 10 years because this is what we started with, and then with like paper clips, and he kind of like tracked the whole thing, and then. It was interesting to kind of, he was basically telling us no and get out of here. But the funniest part of it was I complimented him on all these incredible whiskeys, that they produce. And he said, oh, gosh, well, I don't really drink. But, but my favorite one was Fireball. because it made them $1 billion, and he did not care about the 200 case production of this and this and this. So it's kind of funny in that realm.
I mean, I don't think that's dissimilar to wine, or actually chefs are kind of the same way. I mean, I love it when some very sophisticated chef is like, do you know how good a cheeseburger is?
Yes.
I freaking love a cheeseburger. I want to have a cheeseburger, a beer, and a cigarette. I love when a chef says that. And it really is the same thing. Like, in wine, some of the best, and when I'm appreciating wine on its highest level, I drink so slowly and have such insight to it. And a lot of those great wines, they don't beg to be slammed back,
Sure.
I mean, it's got so much to it that you're just patient with it. And I think bourbon is maybe even that amplified.
Definitely.
I mean, it is so much like finding all these nuances to it, and it's such a slow consumption. I think that's part of the beauty of it and appreciation of it.
Hey friends, Mike Anderson here for Drop the Check. Have you ever had the perfect bubble? I mean, what is the perfect bubble? Is it that one that you got from stuffing 6 wads of gum in your mouth next to the baseball field? Or maybe the ones that you blew for your kid's 2nd birthday party? For me, it's probably the one that I stick over my head when someone asks me to be on a Zoom call. But if you really want the perfect bubble, try Topo Chico. Topo Chico is the best sparkling water because the bubbles are perfect. And if there's ever a collaboration between Topo Chico and Pearson Meyer Wines, perfection times 2. Topo Chico, the bubbles are perfect.
So go back, Kent. You have the opportunity to have these meetings and to be able to source some great bourbon that's actually distilled already.
Right.
But you're still doing the evaluation of that and sourcing it and putting it together. And, how are you going about that? I mean, what is your goal?
Right. Well, I mean, our goal was twofold. We had established that we really like that. The age difference, or the age differences in aging bourbon is huge, right? In my opinion, and like 10-year, Eagle Rare, for instance, is such a go-to years ago, and I'm sorry if I'm getting offline here, but so we kind of determined that 12-year-old bourbon is really like ideal for what we like and what we think we should produce. I think once you get over 12 years, up to 15, it's still pretty good. But once you get over 15, the barrel completely takes over, and the whiskey disappears. Yeah. And so, in my opinion, I mean, that's the funny thing with the beverage industry. All you ever get is an opinion, But
Sure,
but that in and of itself establishes who and what you are, right? I mean, you kind of are the gatekeeper. From my perspective, right? I appreciate bourbon. I like it as a beverage. I like whiskey. I find it fascinating. And I can tell myself I know what I like, but I will go to you if you tell me, Robbie, you need to try this.
Yeah,
I'm going to stand up and take notice, and that is part of the art and what you do is you're kind of the gatekeeper to that.
right.
As soon as you establish, just like you say, from 10 to 12-year-old to 15-year-old to this composition of the mash and everything else. If I start to trust your palate, when you tell me it's
good,
great, then I trust that.
Sure.
And and the thing is that not everyone has that capability to identify what is,
what's good, what's not.
Yeah. Or I hate to say what's good and what's not. What is presentable to others? Mm-hmm. I know that I like your cooking. Mm-hmm. I know that I like your wine. And so when you tell me this is going to be great bourbon, it is.
There you go.
And that's its own talent to have.
That opens up a really interesting concept. And this even goes back to us talking about cheeseburgers of the chef. And, the way something makes you feel, the psychological aspect, even the term good. Yeah. What is good? Robbie and I have said this several times before, that I know that you guys, as the producers and are respected in your field of what you do, the guy that doesn't know about wine, to have to pose to you, hey, in this, there's say 50 bottles are on the wall. What is good? Well, goddamn, how do I even answer you right now? What is good is what you like. So, the person that you have respect for their taste and their opinion, is that psychological aspect of what you just said, Robbie. You admitted to maybe not being so much of a bourbon guy or some of these spirits.
Oh, I don't have that knowledge.
Somebody you don't have the knowledge, but then somebody that you have a respect for his palate. Might be food.
Yeah.
Right? Might be food that Kent, obviously he knows his business, knows his food. He says, I think you'll like this. Is that psychological effect, as we always use the term Sergio Buboni? Is that the psychological effect? Sergio Buboni is this hypothetical brand that we have, that we say, hey, that's a Sergio Buboni, and you go, holy shit!
Everyone loves that. So good.
It might as well be Topo Chico.
Was it
right?
clothing?
Oh my God!
Sergio Baboni.
Well, listen,
It's his
I
own
made that
brand.
up.
It's his own brand.
Yeah, this is back to that Sisyphus thing. My brand.
Do I get a Baboni article
Hey,
of
look.
clothing?
Is this a
You know,
Bourbon?
if this a Topo Chico, hey, forget it, guys. We just rebrand that as.
But hold on, Mike. What is the question though for Kent is like
Is it psychological effect? I mean, it's hard to know. Like, do you ever contemplate that, like, the act of you, a respected guy in your field, saying this is good already makes it good?
It's pretty interesting, that you bring that up. I mean, I think, and Robbie could probably attest to this, but we're a little jaded here because we're a bunch of winemakers, we're a bunch of tastemakers. Sure. You know what I mean? So it doesn't seem like a big deal to me, or maybe Robbie. But you get outside of this realm, and I go back home, or I go back east, or I go anywhere, and I'm the resident wine guy. Like, they hand me the menu, right? You know what I mean? It's like, and so. And, some of that goes back to your regional knowledge, and and it's funny, people ask me, oh, well, what do you drink? And what's your favorite winery in Napa? And it's like, none of them, because I drink Napa wine all the time. So, in production. So it's like, I'm always looking for something, bizarre, like an old vine Carignan or something like that. But yeah, we sort of become like the resident, it's like we're sort of the wine experts,
Yes.
And that,
which is kind of fun.
But it's also, I think it's valid. Okay, so because there's two things. One, and whether it's wine or cheeseburgers or bourbon and whiskey, we have had the good fortune of tasting and evaluating a million of these. More than most lay people would.
Absolutely.
Okay? But that's only
the access.
That's only one thing. I know collectors. I know people in the industry that just quite frankly, they don't have a good palate. And it's not just opinion, because opinion does matter, but there is a physicality that just like, I'm never going to be Michael Jordan. I can go shoot, baskets all day long. I'm never going to be Michael Jordan. But there are other people who can taste food, wine, beverage all day long, and they're just not going to be as good as other people. And so, I mean, I want to give credit to that. Like, Kent's had great exposure to, whiskeys and food and all of these things and wine, and has, the exposure. But the knowledge, the brain power, the palate to identify and qualify things as better than others it's a talent in and of itself. Fair enough.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
I'm not patting you on the back.
No, I know, and I mean, there's a lot of us, like that. And I kind of struggle with that.
Fame.
Well,
you're very famous.
Not the fame, but not the fame. I mean, that's easy. No, I just think it's funny, when you get into these things, and it kind of goes back to like historically. Yeah. I mean, I've been making wine and things for so long now that, I don't have the emotional reactions I used to. Like I used to pull my hair out, lose sleep over wines or things that were happening, with my wines, things like that. Just because it's more of a veteran experience thing now. I don't have that. I still fret over it. And I worry about that stuff. But it's funny. We talk about it all the time. You do all these things, these fine-tuned details, and you really just approach your blending to try to just perfect the product. And you get it into bottle, and you get it out to market, or you get it in your tasting room, and you have a group of people that come through, to taste these wines. And the guy who's buying the most wine is probably the least talented palate in the entire room. He's just got a lot of money, and he has he has good times. He's like, my wife likes it, and meanwhile, 2 years ago, I was pulling my hair out over this thing, stuff like that. Just kind of funny.
Yes, I completely agree with you that a lot of the consumers, whatever, may or may not have on their own the best palate, but that's not really the point, right? That's exactly why they're connected to you, because they have the capability to search out the people who they know are the tastemakers.
Right. And they trust you for it.
They trust you
Yeah.
for it, and they're correct. I mean,
Right.
that's the whole thing. I don't know if this is a non sequitur or whatever, but let's talk about the bourbons that you're producing, and you're doing one now for Steph.
Right. So,
So that doesn't happen. So Steph Curry, by the way, that doesn't happen. If you were producing something else, you wouldn't be in contact with Steph. He may love great bourbon, but he's got to come to someone who knows what the heck's going on.
100%. Yeah. And so we started our own production of bourbon through one of the wineries that I work with. And we did a 12-year and we did a 15-year. And I was kind of speaking to that earlier. Well, I was also making wine for the Curry family.
Aisha.
Yeah, Aisha. And so we did that for a little while. And through that connection, we had Stephen himself come up to the winery and everything. And he turns out really loves whiskey. So we were just constantly, and the man can put down quite a bit himself without any effect. Pretty incredible.
Yes.
And anyways, he really liked bourbon, and these guys like to do passion projects and things like that. They like to make money too. So we started a brand called Gentleman's Cut, and it's like 5 to 7 year straight Kentucky bourbon, but it's true Kentucky, and through a distillery partner we have down there. So, it's been I've come a long way from the actual, cellar rat, enologist, winemaking, coming up through that thing. Now it's like basically just blending whiskey.
Right.
It's kind of funny.
But it illustrates the point. That point being that it's not just happenstance, right? I mean, you go through an entire career, passion, move your whole life from Louisiana out to California, and
Get oppressed by some Georgia guy, and then
Yeah,
finally just break through that.
well, basically, it always starts like if you're from Louisiana, you have to go through a gatekeeper like someone from
It's
Georgia.
crazy. I tell you, it's been crazy. It's been crazy for me because I think about you Southern guys. We stick together. It's like the damn Hatfields and McCoys, though.
That's right.
It's like cousins.
Yeah.
You find each other, you can fight with them. Like, he's with me. Don't fuck around with anybody else. But he's over there too. He's
That's funny.
my cousin.
That's funny you say that though, because we do gravitate towards each other out here. It's
yeah.
it's hilarious, and even so, I would gravitate towards international as well, because I think you didn't grow up here. I didn't grow up here.
Yes.
So it's sort of like a little bit of a comfort zone, of having people that came in from outside.
Yeah.
And I really like.
I would say that the Southerners out here very much stick together.
Sure.
And we're skeptical of people from the Northeast, from Ohio, from even California.
The Yankees and the West
Gold chains.
Right?
They don't really know. And I would say prior to all of those other regions, we very much embrace the Kiwis, the New Zealand folks, the Australians,
That's right.
the South Africans, certainly South Americans.
I've got some UK buddies.
Yeah. Well, I was actually going to put the Europeans.
Oh, you're excluding them.
Yeah,
Okay.
in terms of my
I'll
natural
let 'em know.
trust level,
I'll let 'em know.
my natural trust level, they go.
I'm with you, Robbie.
They're maybe slightly ahead of someone from Ohio.
They're low on the road. They're low on the totem pole.
Yeah, but I think maybe Georgia was a what do you call it,
A penal colony.
penal colony,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
Australia,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if Louisiana was, but it should be.
Yeah.
Right. We're the same. Yeah, I feel Australians especially are so close to us.
Yeah.
Rednecks, if you will.
Right.
That I do feel even on this episode, like seeing both you guys, there's a comfort that I feel. I don't even know why that is. Why is that happening? We're a bunch of Southern boys.
Yeah, well,
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so
Stick
sorry,
with it.
we got way off that topic though, but I want to go back to this about the production of the bourbons that you're doing, the gentleman's cut. Again, that is a special thing. It's kind of like again the wine related concept that people get really annoyed when there's a super expensive bottle. Like, why is that the case? And I would say the same thing for me as a consumer, because I cannot afford to have that bottle of wine all the time. As much as I want to argue the point, whatever, I don't know what Chateau Margaux goes for these days, thousands of dollars a bottle. Is that worth it? I don't know what that means. Is it good? Hell yes, it's good.
Right.
And the same thing, it comes to again, like there's absolutely nothing wrong with Jim Beam and Jack Daniels, and you can name it. Ezra Brooks is my father's favorite. Do you know Ezra Brooks?
I don't recall that one.
I don't want to go there. My point is just this: is that
It
there
escaped me
is
while I did my evaluations. I gotta try that.
I get a story about it, but there is that higher difference of when you, again, like I just use the term gatekeeper, can identify these things. There is value to that. And then I just said that same thing. Like when you tell me, when Kent Jarman says, Robbie, you should try this, I've never been disappointed. Right?
good.
It's always a good thing. And that's a talent in and of its own, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think with a lot of that, all the super high end stuff too. The price of small craft bourbon has absolutely exploded. And the same thing with like cult wines, quote unquote cult wines. It's, to me, as I tell most people, it's like it's really becomes the law of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And like once you keep
So what's that terminology on that one?
cult
wines.
No,
cult wines.
Oh, cult wines. Yeah. So just highly sought after. Like they create a scarcity sort of profile.
Okay.
And
There's always like a group of collectors that like,
Right.
It's like we'll know, like Kent for his wine and me for my wine, we'll actually have mutual buyers.
Okay.
Right? Because that's the guy. Oh, you went to Austin? So and so? Yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah.
He's the guy who buys all the great wines.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
That and so therefore the wines that they get that are small production, people say they're cult wines because
I gotcha.
only the
Okay.
people in the know how to get them.
Right.
And the same with bourbon, right?
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But so I don't want to take another divergence.
Ezra Brooks.
The Ezra Brooks. So I'm in Scotland with my dad, and you said you like Scotch, and we're in Glasgow, and we go to a restaurant. My dad at that time was 86 years old, and we sit down, and they're like, can I get you anything to drink? And my dad's like, yeah, I'll have a bourbon. And I'm like, Dad.
Shit, here it goes.
And the lady's like, sure. I'm not doing a Scottish accent. And he's like, do you have any Ezra Brooks? And I was like, oh my God, this is not fancy, right?
Right.
Kid has never even heard of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, and she's like, yep. They had Ezra Brooks.
Yeah.
That bottle's
Right.
it's like, oh, actually, this is a 25-year-old bottle.
Oh yeah.
Because nobody's touched it. And actually, that probably was really maybe decent because
it
hadn't expanded or
Exactly.
whatever. That's really hilarious.
But that was not my segue. My segue was this, because we do talk about food so much, and as much as, well, first I'll say that Kent does have cooking skills. I still, even though jambalaya is a native dish of his homeland, I do make it so much better than he does.
Oh, I could feel it. I
much
could
better.
feel it coming. I could feel.
His dad.
Just because he uses like colored peppers. I mean, it's
Yeah, I could feel Hatfield meet McCoy.
No,
that's right.
His dad bought me a nice Dutch oven that I work with, and quite frankly, I think his dad thinks I'm cooler than he is.
Okay.
So I got that going.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, so you are a very, very good cook and winemaker, and you do this stuff. Now, do you think of bourbon as a food-friendly product?
More of like like a dark chocolate type pairing, but not. I wouldn't really see like really good food pairing dinners, like multiple massive menus. People do it. They do it.
Yeah.
You know what I
But
mean?
that's kind of corny, right?
Yeah.
If you're enjoying bourbon,
Something
it's
you want to
usually
drink after dinner,
Yeah.
or before.
or before, and it's literally a cocktail that you have with friends, and that you're watching the game or whatever. That's how you enjoy it.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't really like these bourbon pairings.
No, I don't put much to it.
No.
I think it's maybe just another.
It's trying too hard.
It's trying too hard. Maybe it's a good avenue to sort of introduce things. If you're drinking, but I think like a little bit of chocolate. Is kind of a fun thing. Could be like palate cleanser type thing if you're tasting multiple bourbons. But I think it's kind of too much. I just really enjoy.
Here, have another Topo Chico.
Thank you. Yes.
But this whole thing with bourbon, any of the spirits, small distilleries, it's interesting to me because we've seen for a number of years now, especially in cities that are kind of redeveloping communities, that like a craft brewery will go in. They'll go into the part of the city that's trying to transition into evolve to a better neighborhood or whatever. The craft brewery would go in there, like maybe cheaper real estate, whatever. There's craft breweries I know out there in the West, they have been for a long time, but let's say the past 10 15 years in Atlanta, they're ubiquitous. It's almost like we've come full circle to like there's this one major brewery to there's like neighborhood restaurants and little breweries everywhere now. These small, like the little bourbon
Small batch.
shop distillery, small batch, right? So to your point, even what you guys are talking about, like the pairings and this and that, I can't wrap my head around because I don't drink a lot of liquor. I drink beer. That I think about like how you even go to these places, how you go and sit down, like if you want to drink.
That's the
whatever,
fun. That's
three,
the fun,
right?
That's the fun.
Okay.
That's exactly part of the mystery, right? I'm not going to speak over you, Kent, but it's the same with wine. Half of the fun, like Pearson Meyer.
Sure.
Let's do a selfless plug here.
Okay.
I'm like producing my wines. I'm never going to make more. I make it out of my love for doing it, and the less I talk about it, the less that people can get it, the more attractive it is to these other people. And that's not diminishing the fact of its quality. It's just, it's not trying to be scarce. It's simply scarce because it is. I know how to make 50,000, 100,000 cases of wine. I know how to do that. But I can't do that and have the same uniqueness to it, the same identity, the same uniqueness, because simply of a plot of land, a barrel of something, a uniqueness to it. You're never going to get that. And hopefully I'm a good craftsman in doing that. It's the same thing with bourbon, right?
On an aging level,
Sure.
I mean, it's, there's the mash bills don't, there's not a super strong diversification in mash bills.
Explain mash bill for the audience.
So, any bourbon to be classified as bourbon has to be 50% or more of corn. And so, typically you're going to have corn, rye, barley, sometimes wheat will be the main mash bill ingredients. A lot of it is 70% plus corn. And I mean, it's
Because and very, very briefly, because you start out with a starch, which you then convert to a sugar,
Right.
which you then ferment, which you then distill.
Right.
That's our science
It's-
class. We'll do another episode on that.
I mean, you're kind of making corn beer, you know. And so you take that beer, and then that's what you're distilling, and then you do a couple distillations on top of that, and then you put it to barrel for aging. But yeah, and so the mash bills out there, you know, there's different ones and different things, and you know, you can go through all that stuff. But the aging is what really makes it scarce.
Sure. I mean, it adds to the cost and the uniqueness, but there's still, though, the craft to doing all of that. When you need to have your mash bill to produce a million cases of something, you're going to have to start compromising between the products that you're using, between the techniques that you're using, even regardless of just the aging. All of that whole process is, the more craftsman-like it is, it's going to result in a better product.
Right.
And then once you get into the time and patience of properly aging that, you're released with a whole new product.
Well, and what gets fun is because of the aging and because of the differences in where it ages, there's uniqueness in some of those batches, right? And so that's where some of the blending and the taste making comes into it. And you can have a similar mash bill, or even from the same lot, that aged a little bit differently. You know, one was in the corner of a rick house, while the other one was like at the top, the other one was at the bottom. It affects what's in that barrel and what it tastes like. And so that's where a lot of that palate work comes into play. It also, if you're doing single barrels, things like that, it's really fun because, you know, each year that you're doing some of these single barrels, it's going to be a little bit of variation, which is nice.
Right.
I like variation. You know, we don't want to paint by numbers, you know, and that's kind of what we like to do is actually, you know, have that variation, and like for vintage to vintage.
100%.
Whereas,
Everything you're saying, it all lines up and makes perfect sense to me. And we're going to have to do a whole nother conversation about this. But the exact thing, I hate when people say, what's your favorite barrel? Meaning who produces a wooden barrel. There's no such thing. What's your favorite vineyard? What's your favorite, whatever. If you get down to it, and I can do my craft as best as I can, I'm still a subject to a vintage. And each vineyard is going to respond differently to any vintage. And then if you can't do it, but if I could take the same grapes and take them to two different wineries, great wineries, and make the wine simply because they're separated, the wine's going to be different. It's a subject of its own, microbiology, its own environment. And this, again, goes back to the uniqueness of it. And the same thing, even once it's all done, if you could take the two same things and move them into different environments just to age, and whether it's the ambient temperature, whether it's the hydration, the humidity in the air, whether it's all these things, just make it simply different, because these things are living things. And that's exactly true with bourbon, right?
Yeah.
Just like you say, in the rick house, you could have all the same stuff, and you go from barrel to barrel to barrel, you're going to taste differences.
Yep. And, you know, we've got to screen barrels. We have to, just like wine, you know, we have to screen different wine lots, things like that. Generally I do, I've definitely made some really good wines in my career, but but I do explain, I do explain to people sometimes that my job occasionally, like if we're doing negotiant stuff, or like, you know, going through and screening and working on lots, is I'm really good at making chicken salad out of chicken shit. Yeah. But that's a skill set for winemakers, you know?
Yeah. No, you can see something different than, whatever first meets the eye. And arranging, all of these different things is, again, it's its own talent. You know what?
Yeah.
Your pause.
No, I was about to say maybe these should all be tested out. Here we go.
Okay.
Let me propose this.
Okay.
Jambalaya.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wine. Okay.
Yeah. Mine's better.
Bourbon.
Yeah.
Bourbon. Hang on. Here we go.
These all
Stick
sound
with it.
very good.
All these together. Hang on.
Yeah.
Topo Chico.
Yeah. They all
At-
go well.
Yeah.
Drop the Check Fest 1.0 this coming year.
Oh, I'm in.
How about that?
You know,
Gumbo, add gumbo to it.
Gumbo.
Okay. So I'll say this for the record. I've got a couple comments here. One, no jokes aside, my jambalaya is definitely better than Kent's. No question.
Now we're back to the good thing, bad evaluation. Okay,
This is an ongoing competition,
Yeah.
so it's not like it's
really.
better.
It's not really a competition when you win every time.
Okay, win. There's
So,
a win.
I will say this though. I will say
Yeah.
this that Kent's gumbo is I can't even do it because his roux is just I just can't do it. And I would also put it up there with any of the best gumbo I've ever had.
Okay.
All right,
But
it's going to be at the fest.
it's going to be at the fest, and so here is my second thing. If we can talk about, our future guests, and I'm going to put my dude on the line. But I've told you, Mike, and I even told Kent that I'm getting stale cracker.
That's
on
awesome.
the show,
Okay.
and that
All
at
right.
our fest we got to get stale cracker to cook for us. And you know what I was thinking, Kent, is like Bottle Rock coming up, and
Yeah.
they always have the food stage. It's,
Yeah.
it's a Napa Valley Music Festival, and they always have like Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg or whatever. Stale Cracker needs to come and be on stage.
Stale
man.
cracker. That'd be awesome to watch.
He's
That'd be fun.
good. He's good.
What about the drop the check stage here?
Well, that
Napa,
drop the
Bottle
check.
Rocket.
I will host Stale Cracker and get up on
Yeah.
the stage with him.
Perfect.
And I don't know. We could invite Kent.
Sure, or Snoop,
Yeah,
or Snoop.
that'd be-
I mean, Snoop can take my place. That's
Yeah,
fine.
one and the same.
Yeah,
Kent and Snoop.
That's right.
together.
That's right.
But Kent's not. I mean, sorry, Snoop's not a Louisiana chef.
He
say he could be.
He lived down
He
there
lives-
for like many years.
Well, he was hanging
Yeah.
out with.
He was C Murder.
Oh no. I was thinking of who's the big.
It's a guy.
Who's the big New Orleans guy?
Lil Wayne.
No. Yeah. Well,
No,
Lil Wayne.
no. I know here.
He's like.
No. Hang on. I should know this because the producer.
Yes. He's a big deal.
Yeah. I know you.
Oh my.
Master P.
Master P. That's who I was
Master
thinking.
P.
Of. Yeah.
Master
exactly.
P.
Yeah, he lived in
That's
Baton
right.
Rouge.
Yeah.
and New Orleans, but Snoop
Yeah.
was there for a long
Yeah,
time.
but I was
Snoop's
thinking
son,
Snoop
he-
was hanging with Master P, but he's
Absolutely.
not. He's an L.A. guy.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, I taught you how to make jambalaya, and now you think it's really good. So Snoop can do the same thing.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Snoop can do everything. He's on Sesame
Pretty
Street.
much.
He sells weed and rolling paper.
Pretty much.
Crayons.
Yeah.
Martha Stewart. He
He's
can do everything.
selling smokeless fire pit things now. He's
Yeah, I mean,
he's
it's-
doing that whole thing.
exactly.
He can do whatever he wants to do.
And so can we.
That's
So
right.
can we. and that was. I don't know if that was a segue at all, but you know what? I think
Hey.
we've gone a long time here.
Yeah.
You know what? We've set the menu now. We've set the menu for us. And so now you know what it's time to do, Robbie?
Drop the check.
Drop the check. Hey, friends. Thanks again for joining us on Drop the Check. As always, we'd love feedback from you, so please follow us and reach out on Drop the Check on Instagram and at dropthecheckpodcast.com. We have some great guests in wine, food, and entertainment, so please keep following us. As always, Drop the Check is brought to you by Pearson Meyer Wines. Pearson Meyer, a really, really good wine. For Robbie Meyer and Drop the Check, I'm Mike Anderson. See you next time.